Serious Redditors who went to private religious schools, what are your horror stories? My best friend growing up went to one for a year. He was in public school with me till he had a health problem. His parents were scared the kids would make fun of him, so they transferred him. The next year he showed back up at the school and told us there was nothing actually Christian about Christian school, which seemed really poignant coming from a 12-year-old. His stories showed those kids were much crueler than any I ever encountered at school. Principal who was known for grabbing students by the neck and slamming them against a wall. Having to attend church every Sunday or else you would be expelled from school after 3 strikes per year. Not being allowed to use the bathroom during class, only 2 5-minute break periods outside of the 15-minute lunch period every day. No recess periods. Not allowed to talk to classmates after the final class every day on school grounds or on a bus. Not allowed to wear shirts that have designs on them. Mandatory after school study hall if any grade was below a C. I went to a Lutheran school from K8th grade. 15-minute lunch periods. Is that normal in schools? That is barely enough time to eat. No real horror stories. I was in Catholic school from kindergarten to college. Grade school was tough. Not because of the teachers, but because it was the same 35 kids for 9 years. Any horror stories I have were from the other kids, not faculty. My high school math teacher was expelled from the church edit school and was defrocked from being a priest after he had a same-sex relationship with a student that he claimed started on the kid's 18th birthday. He avoided jail time, but all references to him, he was president of the school for a while, have been scrubbed with ducking bleach from the school. College was Catholic, but just like there was a priest or nun here and there. For all intents and purposes, it was just a secular liberal arts school. My god, did we go to school together. I had a very similar experience, same classmates from 1st to 12th grade. I had a huge class 48. I got 2 weeks detention for bringing a kid's book on evolution to school and asking if evolution made it possible for all the animals to fit on the ark. My thinking was that back in Noah's day there was only one species of elephant, horse, lion, etc. So there would not be the problem of fitting multiple species of one family into the ark. Then after the ark, evolution kicked in and we got different species after they repopulated the world. To my mind, this was a perfectly fine way to resolve the young earth evolution bad sciences cool conflict I was having. Nope. Apparently I was thinking too much and needed to be punished for not believing what the Bible said. Edit for those asking. This was a Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod Wells school, which was very conservative. We had a priest who turned out to be a pedo. I know he tried to groom me at one point, but turns out I was too depressed to buy any of that shit. Only time depression was a good thing. He was convicted a year or a bit after I left for offenses against at least 3 boys and spent the rest of his life in prison. My parents love to tell a story about what a difficult student I was. The story, as they tell it, is that I once accused my math teacher of being a Nazi because I do not like math. What actually happened was that my math teacher spent an entire period fantasizing out loud about the day when God would ordain good Christians rounding up and killing all the gays. I called him a Nazi because he was standing there daydreaming about committing genocide to a class full of 16-year-olds. I got the problem child label too. Took me a while to realize it was not because I was an actual problem, and more because they did not know what the duck they were doing. I have plenty, but the thing that really gets to me is the physical abuse. One of my teachers physically assaulted me and ended up pinning me to the ground, and he only got a slap on the wrist. Ended up becoming principal after I had left and when my dad gave me a black eye and a concussion, all my teachers said I must have deserved it. Cherry on top of the shit Sunday is that lately my dad's been casually mentioning how he thinks it is okay for teachers to assault kids and how he should have hit me more often. I think he does it because he knows how much it gets to me. But he has been spending a lot of time with people associated with that institution, and I think they are encouraging that type of thinking. Oh, and the local paper just did a profile on how much they help the community. Made me want to vomit. I went to a private Christian school from 1st to 8th grade. It's not much of a horror story, But I remember being shown a video where a man giving a presentation tried to argue the age of the earth as only being 10,000 years old. It was an attempt at joining creationism in the book of Genesis to an actual time span in a scientific context. I went to a state-funded nominally Church of England school in the day, but for 2 hours every weekday afternoon I was sent to a madrasa, which is customary among Muslim families. We sat and read the Quran and did nothing else. The teacher liked groping women on buses, but he kept that part of himself away from the madrasa. He subjected us to a lot though. He had a bit of wood from a chair that he used to hit us with if we pronounced anything wrong. Sometimes he used a bit of hose. He had hit us on the backs of our hands and the soles of our feet. He had make us stand like a chair against a wall for ages, or give us the chicken punishment where we had have to hold our ears with our arms passed around our legs. Sometimes when someone was in that position he had beat them across the back with timber. This was in high school. The music teacher wanted the girls to perform a very suggestive song about a schoolgirl. 2 months later he was arrested for pedophilia in Sunday school. My high school never addressed that. I have a friend who went to a religious school. At the time, she was 15. The teacher, male, whenever my friend did something wrong, would make her sit detention and he would tell her that she is possessed because she made a mistake. Then he would lock them both in a small classroom and he would touch her in ways that are not supposed to be felt by a 15-year-old girl for half an hour. This would repeat every time she makes a mistake. She is 24 now and has severe paranoia. We had the father of a 4th grader at our school shoot her, his other daughter and himself. The school was so strange for a few weeks. Lunchroom was silent. No bullying, which in middle school was a rarity. The bitchy social studies teacher sobbed and said if anyone tried to hurt any of us, she would not let them. The mom's only request was all the students sing at her daughter's funeral. Nobody missed that funeral. The rare time I have to attend mass when my folks visit, the mom is there. Every time. She wears a pin with a picture of her daughters on it. I still remember the younger daughter walking along the halls. I went to a small private Christian school from 6th 8th grade. Ever see the movie Jesus Camp? This school was an exact copy of that. Pentecostal teachings, with weekly worship services where little kids were speaking in tongues and falling over and all that. It was nuts. Yes, the principal called Harry Potter the devil. I don't know how I managed to survive through 3 years of that place. It was a boarding school. Try going months without the internet, TV, cell phones, or talking to girls. We were not allowed to lock our doors out of fear we might masturbate or something. So our shit can get stolen at any time. We had to keep our money locked up in the office. 2. We had to tell people where we were going and when we will be back. Keep in mind we were there 24/7. 3. Very strict dress code 24/7. 4. Food gave me diarrhea. 5. There was no nurse. So if you got sick you needed to pay for a cab to take you to a doctor and use your parents' insurance. 6. So much ducking prayer all the time. 7. Long duck-ine hours. Yes. Corporal punishment was a thing. Yes. I got paddled. Yes. We wore uniforms. And yes, we said the Pledge of Allegiance every day. And yes, we attended a mass once a week. Well, I really cannot complain too much. Different time and era. Early 1970s. I started out left-handed, but my Catholic school made sure I learned to write with my right hand because the devil uses the left. That said, my high schooling was phenomenal. Well, without a doubt a Catholic high school. It had a highly demanding, very secular, and fairly progressive in our curriculum. My school expelled a girl who had a mom that came out of the closet for having a gay parent. I was not involved in any way, but I just remember hearing that it made the local news and we had an assembly about it. I once wrote Jesus is always the answer on a test question I did not know. On a math test, I got it right. My mom went to a church-run residential school. On her very first day she asked the sweet-looking nun in her own language, since she did not speak English where her mother was. In return, she got a nice smack across her face. Things only went downhill from there. I had an aunt that I swear was possessed by the devil. She was amazingly evil. She was the 3rd grade teacher. 3rd grade was also the only classroom that had carpeting for some odd reason. I will never forget when a fellow student accidentally spilled grape juice on the carpeting. She chased him with a paddle and was screaming at him, "Come here and get your beating," for spilling grape juice. She died a little over a year after that. She has to be roasting in heck. Catholic school. Left-handed. Divorced parents. They kind of hated me. Got in trouble for blessing myself with my left hand, but thankfully they had moved on from the left-handed devil stuff by the time I got there. So many of the male teachers, upon reflection, were blatant ducking pedos. So many weird, little, esoteric and arbitrary rules enforced on children just trying to live and enjoy themselves. It is so absurd. Went to a Catholic school where a rumor had been passed down to each class about a nun who murdered a bunch of people like 30 years ago. Nobody knew where that rumor started, but anytime a door would slam shut from the wind or something, everyone would freak out and yell, "Our sister Kathy." A few years later, women who attended my school back in the 70s came forward to open up about horrible sexual and emotional abuse from the priest, and it turned out that Sister Kathy didn't murder anyone. She was trying to save the girls and was murdered. The Keepers on Netflix details the whole thing and how justice was never served. Coincidentally, the school shut down the year that the program aired on Netflix. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.